Hey guys and girls, welcome to a new Photoshop tutorial. This tutorial will be a bit different. It's a premium tutorial, but it's free. So the tutorial itself is free. You can watch it full version. You can watch the full version here on YouTube and also on my website on members.psdbox.com. But the resources that I use, the assets and the PSD file, are available only for premium members. So you can watch the full tutorial, but if you want to download the assets, they are only available for premium members. This is the quick photo shoot that we made for this tutorial. Something very simple, no flashes, no nothing, just an overcast day and just natural light. I shot this with a 50mm lens, and you have the photos for premium members. You have them on the resources, well, on the stock folder. You have the 3 images, 1 raw file and 2 JPEGs at full resolution, as well as all the stock images that I used and the 3D render for the wheelchairs. So this is an advanced tutorial. I use Photoshop CC 2019, but you can use Photoshop CS, even CS6 if you have it. So as I said, it's an advanced tutorial. I hope you will enjoy it, and let's get started. Okay, let's start with the actual tutorial. If you're a premium member and you downloaded the PSD file, you will see that the layer order here will be a little different than the one that we're going to do on the tutorial, because the lights that I added here at the end are well, I just added them at the end. So this is the end result, and this is what I made with Camera Raw. So I'm going to show you how to create this effect, this final effect, the colors and the contrast and everything with Camera Raw, and I'm going to give you the preset that I used as well. So let's open our first stock image. So we're going to start by creating the background, of course, and here on the stock folder you will see I added some other images. This is the one that I used. This is from a pack, from a free pack of blood and bloody text that I created, and also some other marks like this. So I'm gonna give you all of them. You can use whichever you want. I used this one. Okay, so let's start with the background, this one over here. I purchased this image from 123rf.com. It's a low cost stock site, and you will see that this is a pretty big image. It's 5,000 pixels. So for this tutorial, because I'm also recording the video and I don't want to have a slow recording and all of that, so I'm gonna lower it down to 3,000. If you have a computer that's powerful enough to handle this kind of canvas size, you can work with the full size. The PSD file, it's on the full size, 5,000 by 3,000, but the PSD file that you're gonna get, it's probably gonna be a little smaller, because otherwise this will be a really huge file for you to download, and with just 3,000 pixels or 2,000 pixels will be enough for you to see how I made this PSD file. Okay, so this is our background, and the first thing we want to do, we're gonna start with the easy stuff, which is adding the image here on the TV. If you don't want to do that, just don't do it. I liked to do it. You will notice that I also gave you 3 images. This is the one that I give you as an extra file, and this is the image that I used on the TV, and this is the image that I used for the tutorial. It doesn't really matter which one you use. This one is in raw format because this is the one that I'm going to use, and I want to have more room to edit it, but you can use whichever you want from this. And for the TV, I use this one, but you can use this one, or it's really up to you. So I'm going to open this image over here, and I'm just going to grab this part over here, Control X, Control W, and Control V here to paste it. You can see it's pretty big. It's not really well, it's not too sharp, even though I shot these images with a 50mm lens. I think I moved or something, and it's not really perfectly sharp, but it's good enough for what we need. So I'm going to put it right over here. The first thing I want to do is create a selection of the screen. You can get the pen tool with the P key. Make sure you set this to path, and just draw a shape like this. It doesn't really have to be a very precise selection, but do your best. And Okay, now I'm gonna select this, and with the Option key or Alt, I think it's on PC, I just move that control point. Now I'm gonna turn this into a selection, right click and choose Make Selection, click OK. I'm gonna activate my image over here, and I'm gonna create the create the layer mask. If it comes out like this, just press Control Command I on the layer mask, and that's it. Now I'm gonna unlink it because I want to move this image freely around here, and I'm gonna make it a little smaller like so, and just rotate it slightly. I'm not gonna distort it because it doesn't have to be really that realistic. What you can do is double click on the layer mask and just increase the feather a little bit, just 2 or 3 pixels to soften the edges slightly. 1 pixel is enough. And now I'm going to double click to open the layer styles here, and I just want to blend this a little better. I'm going to move this underlaying layer slider to the right, and then I'm going to press and hold the Alt key and move this even more to the right, and probably this one I'm going to leave it there like so. Let's try with this one. This is just to blend a little bit this image. I want to distort it a little more. Well, actually I want to desaturate it and add some grain, and I'm going to use the camera raw filter for that. So I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to zoom in at 100% so I can see the image better. And I'm going to go to FX, and I'm going to increase the grain quite a lot, the size as well a little bit. Well, actually the roughness more than the size. And I'm going to go to the General tab, to the Basic tab here, and I'm going to reduce the vibrance. I want to make it almost black and white, and just click OK. Now, if you want to go even further, you can add a glitch, a Divi glitch effect. I think I have one here. I don't know if I saved it here. Let's see. Yeah, I got this one over here. I'm going to put it into the stock folder. So again, I'm going here, and you can use this image. Honestly, I googled this, as simple as that. It doesn't really matter where you get it from, but if you have one, just take a shot of your TV with no signal effect on it, and that's it. So I'm gonna put it right over here. I'm gonna make it even smaller, and I'm gonna create a clipping mask and change the blend mode to soft light. Let's see which one works better, soft light or maybe. Yeah, screening doesn't work. I'm gonna leave it on normal and try the blend if, and I'm gonna move the sliders like so. Oh, oops, sorry, this layer, we're gonna move it like that and see how that works. Not working. So I'm gonna set it to soft light as before, as I did before, and just drop the opacity a little bit, and that's it. We have that really weird image over there. You can also add an inner shadow if you double click on the layer and just add inner shadow. Let's reset this to the default, multiply, and just increase the size, and that's it. Okay, let's move on. This was the easy part. Let's name this TV, so we know that it's the TV image. And let's create a first effect here. I wanted to create a basic effect here on the room before I added the model. So I added a color lookup, and here I used a preset which you will have on the stock folder. Simply you will have to go here to load 3D LUT, go to the stock folder, and you will find a file called, I forgot to put it there, I have it here on the list, a file called PSD box PA18. This is from the Portrait Awesome pack. Set this to linear burn, sorry, and drop the opacity to 30 or 35%. In my case, 35 worked well. You can see it darkens the whole image, and it adds a little bit of contrast, and it also changes a little bit the colors. Next, we're gonna add a vignette effect using curves. This is a technique which I explained on another tutorial, maybe a couple of years ago, I don't know. Basically what we're gonna do is just drop this like so to create a darkening effect, and we only want to look here on the edges. There are other techniques to create vignetting effects, but I like this one. So basically you just drop this like so to darken the image. You can also create a color. For example, if you go to the channels, you can add more, I don't know, more yellow or more blue, maybe some green, like so. Okay, and next we're gonna get the elliptical marquee tool, make a selection like that, make sure the feather set to 0, and you can make this vignette as big as you want. I want to have it like so, and basically we only want to have the effect here on those sides, so everything that is here in the inside of the circle will not be visible. The effect will not be visible. I'm gonna make it a bit wider, like so, and I'm gonna select the layer mask, make sure I have the foreground color set to 0, and I'm gonna press Option backspace, or I think it's Alt backspace on Windows. And now I want to soften this. Okay, I have the vignette, but it's really strong, so I'm gonna double click on the layer mask. This opens the properties panel. If it doesn't do that, you have to go to Photoshop, Preferences, Interface, and from here, I think, no, not here on Workspace, maybe. I never know where that is. Here on Tools, you have to uncheck double click layer mask, launches, select and mask workspace. So uncheck that, and if you double click now, you should see this panel over here. And if you want to refine and mask, you have to right click and choose select and mask. Okay, this is in Photoshop CC 2019. I think in the previous versions that option is there as well. So here I'm going to increase the feather. This will soften my layer mask. If you don't have this feather option, select the layer mask and apply Gaussian blur with about 300 pixels of diameter. Okay, and you can see now the vignette is created and is really soft. You can soften it as much as you want. Make sure you have something uniform, well, as a gradual transition, and you can. This is totally editable, so you can edit this whenever you want. Okay, now we have the vignette. What else? Let's start adding the blood here on the wall and the light. Let's start with the blood on the wall. I'm gonna press Command Shift D. This is a custom shortcut that I created myself for placing an object. If I go to File, you will see Place Embedded. So that's a quick shortcut to open my stock folder. And I'm gonna open this one. Let's start with the difficult one, okay? This image is the one that I'm gonna put here on this wall. So we're gonna do it the pro way, okay? So I'm gonna select everything, copy, and I'm gonna drop this layer. I no longer need it, and I'm gonna create an empty one on top. Now I'm gonna go to Filter and choose Vanishing Point. Okay, now I have to create a grid that is the same as the wall, a virtual grid here. So I'm gonna start from here, from this corner, and I'm gonna follow the line here, that edge of the wall. I'm gonna click somewhere there, and I'm gonna follow this line over here. Okay, so something like that, and I'm gonna drop, drag and create the last point. Now, since I cannot move this, for some reason I cannot move it, click, drag to scroll the image in the preview window. Click and drag while I cannot move it. So I'm gonna zoom out. For some reason I don't know how to move on this screen. I'm gonna control click this to select the grid again, and I'm gonna create the grid. I want this line to be perpendicular to this one over here, so something like that. If you get something that is red like this, it means the perspective is not correct, so you have to move it around until you get the blue one. Now I'm sure that this grid is now correct, so I can extend it however I want. And what I'm gonna do now, since I have that image copied, I'm gonna extend this upwards, is I'm gonna press Control Command V with this grid selected. So I'm gonna paste the image over here, and now I have to click and drag it over that grid, and you can see it automatically sets over that grid, and it adjusts the perspective. Now I have to make it smaller, so I'm gonna press Control Command T. This selects my image, and I'm gonna press and hold the Shift key as well to constrain the proportions. And now I'm gonna scale it inside of this virtual grid, and it doesn't matter where I put it, it's gonna adjust perfectly to that grid. So when we change the blend mode of this, it's gonna look as it was written on the wall more realistically. Okay, I'm gonna leave it right over there, press enter, and we have the image adjusted to the wall. Now we have to change the blend mode to get rid of that white background. So I'm gonna change this to multiply, and you can see that now looks really realistically on the image. Don't move it too much because now the perspective is not active, so it's not gonna look that realistic, but even if you put it up here, it's gonna look fairly realistic. Okay, so make sure you position it on the place you want it before pressing enter when you're on the vanishing point window. Now I'm gonna select the eraser just because I want to fade out that effect over there. Now let's name this so, and actually I'm gonna group it, Control G, and I'm gonna name this blood because I'm gonna add all the elements, all the bloody elements inside of that group, and that way I can save space here on the layers palette. Now this is, it's looking too saturated, and you can see the room and everything here is pretty unsaturated. So what I want to do is press Control Command U. This opens the hue saturation while I have this layer selected, and I'm going to drop the saturation a little bit. This darkens the blood. Okay, don't do it completely, to about -40 or something like that. And looks like I misspelled this S. Okay, next let's add that bloody hand there on the window. Again, Shift Command D to open, or just place in bed, or just bring the image here into the canvas using whatever method you want. Place that over there and change the blend mode to multiply as well. And we have to make it smaller. Way smaller. It has to be more or less of a realistic size of a human hand. Just imagine that we have a knob here to open the door, and imagine how big the hand would be in relation, or well, in relation to the door. About that big. I think it looks okay. And again, I'm gonna desaturate this just slightly to about -40. It looks okay. And now let's add that other blood here on the wall there on the right side, and I think I used this one. This is an image that I got from Deposit Photos. Deposit Photos and 123RF are the stock sites that I use to purchase stock images because they are low cost, and you can buy credits so you don't have to purchase a full plan. Okay, oops, actually we don't have to use the opacity, we have to make it smaller first. And in order to see what we're doing, I'm going to change the blend mode now. Multiply. Here we could do the same. We could use the perspective vanishing point feature, but I'm going to show you another way, which is doing it by eye. So it's not that precise, but you can, if you have a good sight, you will be able to nail it just as easily, but it needs a little more practice. So what you do here is press Ctrl Command T to have this selection box active, right click and choose Distort. And here you can distort this freely. And a good way, a tip to create good perspective is to align these lines with the lines on the wall. So create a perspective that, well, these lines should be parallel to one another, and you get a pretty realistic effect. I'm gonna leave it there, probably make it smaller, right click and choose Scale. And I think I'm gonna leave it like that. Now I want to create the effect that this blood comes from underneath that broken thing there. So I'm gonna create a layer mask, get the brush tool, I'm gonna make it a little bigger, and hardness 100%. I'm gonna paint with black here to get rid of that blood over there, like so. And here we have to zoom in and carefully paint along this line over here. You can create a selection using the quick selection tool here on the, like so. And now go back to the layer mask, and with the brush tool you can paint a lot faster. Control D to deselect and touch up this area over here. Like that. Not that difficult, right? Let me get rid of that and of that blood over there. Okay, we're good to go. Now, well, we still have to mask this part over here. I don't like it. And you can see this here is really, it's cut really straight. So I'm gonna create a round effect like so. And now it looks like it's a drip. Now I'm gonna desaturate this as well. Control Command U, -40 or something like that. And we're done with the blood. Okay, the next thing we want to do is create that hole in the wall right over here. And we're gonna add those arms sticking out, these ones over here, and then we're gonna create the light. And after that, after we're done with the light and everything, well, actually the red light, we're gonna add it at the end after we add the model, okay? So let's add the arms here on the wall. I'm gonna minimize this blood group, and I'm gonna create a new layer, because here I'm gonna fill that layer with black and create this wall over here. So first I'm gonna go to the background layer, to this room layer, and I'm gonna select the quick selection tool and just start selecting like this. Oops. With Alt, you can paint out areas that you don't want on your selection. In my case, this one over here. It's pretty easy to select, as you can see, it's pretty quick. And this line over here, we're gonna retouch it with the brush tool after we're done. Let's include this part over there. Not that one. Okay, now let's go back to the layer that I just created, and I'm gonna fill it with black. Press the D key, well, the X key, to make sure that the black is set on the background layer. Oops, it's on the foreground, sorry. And press Alt and backspace to create the selection. For some reason, it's not looking that good. I have that white pixel over there. Yeah, because I first filled it with white. Make sure you fill it with black first. Okay. Great, now we have that holder. It's not realistic, it's too flat. So first, what I'm gonna do is make sure I get this line over here right, and then we will deal with the realism of it. I'm gonna get the brush tool, hardness a little less than 100% because I don't want to have a very sharp edge, and just paint like this. A quick tip: just click one place there, and then press and hold the Shift key, and you're gonna create straight lines, as you can see. Okay, so that's a nice tip when you have straight lines. Okay, let's increase the opacity to 100%, and now I'm gonna change the blend mode. I think I used color burn or linear burn, and now just drop the opacity until you start to see something like that. Okay, not completely black, but almost. You still want to see some, but just a little bit, like so. Okay, now let's group this into a group that I'm gonna name arms, because I'm gonna add my arms there. This one I'm gonna name it whole, and I'm gonna create a new layer, and now I'm gonna open my arms images. Let's go into the stock image, into the stock folder, and I use this one also from depositphotos.com. And here is really easy. You just have to select the arms. You can use the quick selection tool, you can use channels, and well, you can create your own mask using whatever method you like. I think I use the quick selection tool because it's pretty easy to select, except especially this one on the bottom. So I'm not going to show how I extracted this. I just wanted to show that with the quick selection tool you can do it. So I'm going to just fast forward here with the selection, and we'll see when I'm done. Okay, I'm not going to spend more time on the selection. You can take your time, but I just wanted to show you how I selected this. I can see a really bad selection over here. I'm going to get the brush tool, and I'm going to paint with white. I'm going to paint back the finger in here. Anyways, when you're done with the selection, my selection is really bad, but if you take your time, you're going to create a much better selection than I did. But anyways, you're going to have to add, well, to refine the mask. I'm going to right click and choose select and mask, and I'm going to shift the edge about 20%, increase the feather to about 3.5 pixels, and increase the contrast to about 35%. Make sure the output settings are set to layer mask. Click OK, and I'm going to apply the layer mask, and that's it. And I'm going to select with the polygonal lasso tool, I'm going to select the bottom arm. The selection is horrible, okay, but we're gonna have to make this arms a lot smaller, so the quality is gonna improve a little bit. I'm gonna paste that over there. You can see it's huge, especially if I have this smaller canvas, 3000 pixels instead of 5000. I'm gonna make it smaller, flip it horizontally, and this is not the final size, okay? It's a lot bigger than I need. But before I make it to the correct size, I'm gonna convert it into a smart object. The reason why I do this is because maybe I wanna, after I add the model, I realize that the hand, well, this arm here is too big and it's too small, for example, and I wanna make it bigger. If I don't create the smart object and I make it smaller and then make it bigger again, it's gonna lose quality. So I have to preserve the quality. That's why I convert this into a smart object first. The arm will be compared to the arm of the model when I add it. That's why I don't know the final size of it. So something like that. So I'm gonna leave it there. And the next, I'm gonna get the brush tool, create the layer mask, and drop the opacity so I can see where the edge is. Make the brush a little smaller, click there, press and hold the shift key and paint along that edge. And that's it. Really quick and easy. We're gonna have to create the shadows, but we're gonna do that a little later after we add both arms. Now I'm gonna invert the selection with Shift Command I. Well, let's create the selection again. It's really easy. Double click, Control C and Control V over here. This one is a little out of focus, but as I said, it doesn't really matter because as we have to make it smaller, it's gonna increase the quality. Like so. Control T, right click, flip horizontal, and right click, convert to smart object, Control Command T again, and make it the same size as the other one. Well, just look at the fingers and create them. You want them to be roughly the same size. This one, I'm gonna put it right over there, maybe rotate it just a little bit. Put it right over there, create a layer mask for it. I'm gonna zoom in a little more, drop the opacity again so I can see the edge, and just paint. Of course, I can use the selection of that hole that I created, and I have to invert it, and just paint. Without caring too much about the edges. For some reason, it's not working. I don't know why it's not working. I did something wrong. Again, Control Command T, use the layer mask, Shift invert, and paint. Okay, now it's working. Now I can bring back the opacity to 100%, and my arm is there. Let's name this arm 2, and this one on the bottom, arm 1. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is darken them to make them look more or less the same light as on the room. So what I'm gonna do is double click and use layer styles because I want to save some space on the layers palette, and we're just simply adding a gradient overlay, a color overlay. It's gonna be enough. Looks like I have the same color that I used when I created the original PSD file. What I did is I used the hard light blend mode, and on the color I just sampled one from the room, something greenish, not too saturated, and darken it like so. And the opacity is set it to, you can use 100% and use a brighter tone, or you can use a lower opacity and use something darker, and then play with the opacity until you get the light that you want, something like that. And actually, let's add a gradient overlay as well to create the shadow from the wall, and the angle to 180 degrees, scale a little smaller. Well, the angle 148, I'm going to put it, and the scale a little bigger. Okay, and now I'm just going to copy this effect. I'm going to expand this a little bit so you can see it better. I'm going to press and hold the Option key or Alt on the Mac, click on the FX link and copy it to the other arm. And that way I have the same effect on both of them. One other thing that I want to do is desaturate those arms a little bit. Press Control Command U and drag this to -30. And I'm going to copy this. You can see that since this was a smart object, the color overlay, that filter over there, it's now a smart filter, the hue saturation. And you can see they also have these two small circles, which indicates I have a smart filter. So I'm going to copy this smart filter to that other smart object of the top arm to desaturate it as well. Okay, now Let's move on. And what else? Let's add the model. This is where the fun part starts. I'm not gonna place it on the image because it's really huge, and I want to delete the background. And I want to use, whenever you remove the background of an object, of a model or something, do it on the full size of the image. Okay, so I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna go here to the stock folder. I think I used this one. Open with Photoshop CC, and it's gonna open it straight in Camera Raw. Most likely you will have the image already edited because I also included the XMP file. You can see the name of the file is 1123.nef, and here we have the 1123.xmp. This is a sidecar file that contains all the adjustments that I made in Camera Raw. So most likely you will get the image already edited. What I'm gonna do now, I'm not gonna edit the image again here. I'm just gonna go through the panel so you can see the settings that I have, and you can pause the video if you want and copy the same settings that I have, okay? So I didn't touch the curves, I didn't touch the sharpening. Well, yes, I did increase the sharpness a little bit. Here I did not make any changes on the HSL. Also, I did not make any changes on the split tone, no lens correction, no effects. And I did make some adjustments here on the calibration, so you can copy the same settings if you want to, okay? Next, I'm gonna press and hold the Shift key so that the open image turns into an open object. And the reason why I want to open object is because if I wanna make some changes, I can double click here and it's gonna open it back in Camera Raw, and I can edit the image. Okay, this is the image. You can see that it's pretty horrible in terms of focus and quality. It's not the best image in the world, even though, as I said, I use the 50 millimeters lens. I think I use a slow shutter or something, I don't remember. But anyways, let's start cropping this from the background. We don't care about the hair. We're gonna paint the hair manually. It's not difficult. So we get the pen tool, we set the option to path and start creating the path. I'm gonna press the caps lock button. So I change this to the precision mode. You can see from the pen to precision mode, and we start cropping this from the background. I'm gonna go really quick. The goal of this tutorial is not to show you how to extract things from the background because you're supposed to know this. This is an advanced tutorial. So I'm just gonna go really quick and not care too much about the quality of the edges, because what I want to show you is the techniques and how to create the effects, not how to crop edges, how to crop models from the background. And this could actually take a long time, and for this particular image I think I spent like 10 minutes, well, even less, 5 minutes. So I'm gonna fast forward here, just create the path around, and we're gonna continue when I'm done. Okay, when you get to the hair part, just crop it like that. Don't care too much about it. As I said, we're gonna paint it manually. It's not difficult, and it's not necessary to have a graphic tablet for this. If you have, a lot better, but you will be able to do it with the mouse as well. Oops, the line here is really strange, it's really straight, so I'm gonna create a curve like so. Okay, now we have the path. I'm gonna right click, make selection, make sure we have the feather radius to 0, click OK, and create the layer mask. Now I'm gonna bring this whole thing with the V key, select the move tool, and I'm gonna bring this like that, just click and drag to the other tab where I have the manipulation, and let go over here. And you can see that's gonna bring it right over there. And I have to bring it outside the arms group on top of everything. And now I'm going to turn this into a smart object. Right click, convert to smart object. So I have all the editing capabilities here. I'm going to make it smaller. And I have all the editing capabilities because I have this as a smart object. And when I double click here, it's going to open on a new on a new file, and if I double click again, it's going to open Camera Raw, so I can make the edits here as well. So it's a really good way to work like that, because you want to be able to edit everything on your manipulation. Let's see the size that I have. I don't remember. Yeah, you can see that the foot here pretty much touches this this mug over here, and the head, it's up to that side of the wall there on the door. And let's make it slightly bigger. Okay, about that big. Make sure you don't cover that part over there on the hand. I think it looks nice there. And let's bring in the wheelchair, and then we adjust everything here. So I'm going to press Shift Command D, and this wheelchair I rendered myself in Blender. I did not make it myself. I'm going to give you the link to the author that created this. You can download it for free from sketchfab.com. And I just downloaded it. The only thing I did is I changed the texture, because I wanted to create this sort of an old wheelchair. That's why I did this rusty texture. It's not the best in the world, but I think it works. The objective here now is to add this bar here on the hand, and that other part there right here. Okay, so I rendered it in this angle because it's the one that worked, but it's too narrow. So what I'm going to do is just stretch it. In Photoshop 2019, in CC 2019, they locked this by default, so I have to press Shift. Otherwise, I'm going to scale it. Okay, so I'm going to just make it a little wider. And let's see if now it works. Almost, just a little wider. Okay, now I'm just gonna make sure that this fits in here, like so. Perfect. Now, make sure the size is correct before you stretch it and everything. If you have the wheels really big, just try to create a reasonable size and create something that looks realistic. I think like that it looks okay. One thing that I forgot to do on the original is add the texture to make this a little more grungy, because it's too shiny and everything here is just like abandoned and dusty, and the wheels are really shiny. So just do that. Otherwise it's gonna look weird. I'm not gonna do it for the tutorial, but just add a texture on top of the wheelchair as a clipping mask, and just mask this and just make it just show up on the wheelchair, and maybe add a soft light or something on the blend mode. Okay, now we have the wheelchair, and the first thing we want to do is create a shadow on top of it as a clipping mask, because we want to create the shadow of the arms and the body. Get the brush tool, a really soft brush. I'm gonna activate the transfer option and make sure the spacing is set to 0. Well, not to 0, but the transfer is set to pen pressure, and the opacity jitter is set to 0 as well. And okay, everything is set like that. Perfect. Now I'm gonna use a low opacity. Okay, well, about 50% or 30 and flow 50. And I'm gonna just paint with black here to create the shadow that the hand it's supposed to cast here, and also on this side of the wheelchair, because the body also casts a shadow over it. And you can see I'm painting, but it's only visible over the chair, and that's because I created that clipping mask. Okay, so just darken parts of the shadow, darken parts of the wheelchair, sorry. Shadows are already dark, that's why they're called shadows. Okay, I think that looks okay. Let's go here and add a shadow right over there. This should be almost dark. Okay, so don't be afraid to paint a little more. And I'm gonna also darken these parts over here. I think they're too bright. I could have done a better job on illuminating the chair in Blender before I rendered it, but anyway, I think it looks pretty good. It's gonna work for our manipulation. Okay, it's better than that plastic chair that she was sitting on. Okay, well, yeah, one other thing that I want to do is just remove this shadow over here. It looks really weird, so I'm going to select the wheelchair, create the layer mask, and I'm going to drop, well, just mask out this shadow. I don't like it. Just leave the shadow of the chair itself, but not of this two. Well, these are the foot rests where the patient is supposed to put their feet. Okay, now let's name this model. And actually we have to start grouping this. I'm going to select the model, the shadow, and the wheelchair, press Ctrl Command G, and I'm going to name this model. Okay, next I'm going to create a shadow underneath the model, and I'm going to name this model shadow. Oops, shadow, not dado. Great. Now with the brush tool, I'm gonna get well, actually we could use the same image, create a copy of the model. Well, actually let's do it a lot easier. Let's use this layer. What I wanted to do is just use the shadow itself from the image and use the multiply blend mode, but I'm gonna leave it like that and just paint the shadow myself because it's not difficult. With opacity and flow 30 and 50, about 50% hardness on the brush, just start painting. Since I have the pen pressure on, it's easier for me to just paint this shadows like that. Okay, and now with a really low pressure on the pen, I'm gonna paint the shadow over here. Okay, like that, and the one over here as well. You can use the same, the image itself as reference to see how the shadows are here. You can see. What I wanted to do is just copy this part and use the multiply blend mode, but you can see it's pretty easy to paint that. And on top of that, you will practice painting shadows. It's the shadow like so, and then a softer one on the outside to create a transition. With the softer brush, of course. Okay, I think that looks okay. Okay, it looks good to me, but this part over here is not looking that nice in my opinion. So I'm gonna paint it again. Take your time when you create shadows. They really give a lot more realism to your manipulations, if that's your goal. If you want to create something really realistic, take your time, use reference images, and just paint carefully, and use low opacities to build up the effect gradually, and you get much better results. Okay, now we have the shadows. You can see now that she looks like she's actually touching the ground, not just floating there. One other thing we have to do is darken the whole model. Of course, we have to add adjustments and everything, but I want to darken her, especially her feet. So I'm going to create a new layer on top, and I'm going to clip it with Alt and clicking between the two layers, and I'm going to name it this body shadows. And I explained this in other tutorials that I made, premium and free tutorials as well. And this time I'm going to use the soft light blend mode and use the same brush settings, opacity and flow 30 and 50, and I'm gonna paint with black using a really low really low pressure on the brush. If you're using the mouse, set the opacity to about 10 and the flow to about 20 and start painting with black. You have to think a little about how the light would look and the shadows. Okay, so this is a really dark area. We suppose that in between her legs we have really little light. Her sneakers should be really, a lot darker than they are right now, especially here on the bottom. And you can see with this low opacity brush, you can build this really nicely. And you don't kill the highlights. That's why I use the soft light. If I use this on multiply, you will see that it's really not looking that good. That's why I use soft light. Okay, so we keep the highlights and the shapes of the body and the highlights and the shadows that originally are there. And actually you can use this pretty much as a dodge and burn. It has pretty much the same function as the dodge and burn. So a little more here on the arm, and the face a little bit. I think it should be a little darker. Okay, I think we're good to go. It looks a lot better than before and after. Okay, the goal here is to create shadows that are realistic in terms of where they come from, and well, our main source of light is here on the back, so I wanted to create soft shadows. I don't want to create directional shadows, but I think these shadows integrate a lot better the model on the background. And we're not done yet, of course. The next thing I want to do is change the tone. And a good trick to create a nice even color as the background is to use the average blur. I'm going to deactivate the model for a second, the model group. And I'm going to create a new layer on top. Now I'm going to press Shift Option Command E. This merges all the layers onto this new layer on top. And I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and I'm going to choose Average. And what this does, it gets all the colors on the image and it creates an average color. And this is the ambient color of this image. I'm going to reactivate the model group again and drag this image that I just created, this layer on top of it. I'm going to activate it and I'm going to clip it. Alt click. And now I'm going to change this to hue. You can try other blend modes. Hue works, color works as well. But I think hue works better than color because it keeps the highlights. And now I'm going to drop the opacity to, now here it depends, 50%, 60, it really depends on how much color you want to add. I think on the original I used 60. The problem that I get with this is that the face and the skin now has too much of this tone. And working with an image like this, where we have a lot of highlights and with actually a lot of blues, you could have problems. So you could try other blend modes and see which one work, and use, for example, vivid light. I think could work with a really low opacity. I don't know, maybe soft light could also work, but this changes the contrast too much. Actually, soft light looks pretty well, but I'm going to leave it on hue as I had it, and I'm going to put it out at 60%, or maybe, well, yeah, let's leave it at 60. Now I'm going to create a layer mask. Let's name this Color Rise. And on this layer mask, I'm going to paint over the skin because, as I said, it gets too much of this tone, and I want to keep some of her natural skin tone. So I'm going to paint with black with opacity and flow 100%. Oops, but make sure you select the layer mask first. You can see I painted on the image itself, on the layer itself. I just want to paint it on the layer. The reason why I'm using 100% and not just a soft brush, I'm going to show you why I'm doing that. And also I'm going to paint the skin, the hair, sorry. And also this cross here, I want to have this red here. Actually on the post, well, when I'm going to use the final camera raw effect, I'm going to make this really red. I think it would look a lot better. Here is not really that visible, but I want to make it really, you can even create a light coming out or something. So the reason why I use 100% and not a low opacity brush is because now I can drop the opacity of this layer mask using the density, and that's what I wanted to show you, how to use the density. Basically, you let some of that effect coming through, because instead of being black, it's gray, and you can see that now some of that effect passes through. See? I'm going to put it at about 75. Okay, so I just want to have a tint of that, a little tint from that image, from that color over the skin, and a lot more over the whole body. What else? Let me take a look at my notes. We also have curves. Let's add some curves. Clip, of course, because we only want to affect the model. Actually, the curves, maybe it's a good idea to put it under the color, because it's gonna affect the color as well, so we don't want that. Well, actually, let's see how it looks like, and if we don't like it, we're gonna put it underneath. Here you can use this to darken parts of the image. I want to create a little bit of contrast, so I want to brighten some parts of the image and darken some of them. You can see that the background, you always have to compare your model to the background. Take a look at the contrast that we have here. You can see we don't have a really big contrast, so you don't have to do really dramatic stuff over here. Keep the highlights and darken part of the image, and always just activate and deactivate and see did you improve the image or you make it worse before and after. I think the after image looks a little better, and in terms of color I think it matches a little bit the environment, and if it's not, you can use the channels here. Now you have to know a little bit how to work with channels. I think I have a tutorial showing you how to work with channels. I'm going to put a link on the card here. If I find a video, and if I have one, I'm going to put it there, and you can take a look at how that works. But basic color theory here, if you want to add green, just go to the green channel, and you only have to know that the opposite of green is magenta. So basically, if you drag this down, you're going to add magenta. So I just want to add a little bit of green, and you can see the histogram here. I'm adding green to the midtones, and the highlights, they're not touching that much, but even this is too much. So I'm going to leave it there. And on the reds, we can add more cyan, like so, cyan and red. I'm going to add a little bit of red on the highlights and a little cyan on the shadows. You can see the before and after on the curves. I've seen people that make really dramatic adjustments here and then play with the opacity. You can do that as well. It depends on what works best for you. I think this looks pretty realistic. I think I integrated her really nicely here. What else? I think we're done. Now let's go with the hair, and next I'm gonna show you how I created the drool here. Really nice exercise, and how I made the eyes. But let's work with the hair. I'm gonna select the model layer, and I'm gonna create a layer mask. Because I want to soften a bit the edges, you can see are really sharp. So I'm gonna get the brush tool, opacity about 50% or 30 or something like that, and just paint with black. Let me uncheck transfer, and just soften the edge a little bit. Don't erase too much of the hair, because otherwise you'll have more work to put it back on when we paint it on the next step. Just soften it. I'm going to soften the brush even more, and use a medium-sized brush, not something really big, and just do something like that to soften the edges of the hair. You can see I have a really ugly edge over there. Okay, now I'm gonna get a new layer underneath the model, above the model shadow. It doesn't really matter if it's above or below the model shadow, and I'm gonna name it hair. Okay, here what I'm gonna do is use a soft hard brush and just 1 pixel, 1 or 2 pixels. And since I have the graphics tablet, it's easier for me to just control the opacity using the pressure. But if you don't have that, you can use it with various opacities using the mouse. The only benefit of using the graphics tablet is that you have more organic. You can create more organic shapes. You can see basically what I did. The technique is pressing hold and holding the Alt key, sampling, and just painting hair like so. And every time you change the area where you paint, just sample again and just create. You can see I can create really fine, really strong hair here. Okay, so I can basically maybe sample from there and add more hair around here and create this. It's gonna take about 5 minutes to create this, and with practice you'll get better at this. At the beginning it sucks because you're gonna create everything the same, and it's a good way again to just take a look at the original image and use it as reference and see how the hair looks like. Actually, a good exercise is to just open this. Let's open the image, and let's zoom in. I'm gonna put it right over there, and I'm gonna change my window to up horizontal, no, arrange up vertical. Okay, so I have here my reference. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit, and here my other image, and I can just kind of look at it and see what kind of shapes we have there and try to create something like that. You can also, of course, sample different shades, and here where we have the edge, you have to just paint like that and create lines to convert that soft transition into lines like that. You can also use custom hair brushes if you're good at it, but I don't know how to use the hair brushes, and I just create my own hair like this. I think it's not really that difficult. Okay, so you can just create crazy hair like that. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit so you can see the final result and not just watch me as I do it, because it's boring and also time consuming. Okay, I think we're good to go. I'm gonna close this and view, well, arrange and consolidate all into tabs. Okay, I'm gonna show the before and after, before the hair and after. Okay, not really a big deal. With a little practice, you can create some really nice hair. It's not difficult. I forgot to create it here, but well, it's really up to you. Just do it yourself. And I think we're done with the model and the hair. The next step we're gonna do is edit the eyes. Now, basically what I did is I just used some lizard eyes. By the way, this is the pack that I used, the bloody elements. So just go here and use lizard eyes. Okay, and I just Googled something. I just got an image. For example, this one, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Or for example, this one. I can create a snapshot, go here, paste it, crop it, and I think I used maybe the color dodge blend mode, and I don't remember. Just put it there, make it smaller, and put it on top. And let's see, maybe I used the color dodge blend mode or something like that until you get just, well, you get something like this, maybe hard light or vivid light, linear light, and just create a layer mask, and with your brush just paint out part of the eye, and you get something like this. I think it's not looking that good. Yeah, this one looks a little better. Another good way of doing it using the dodge and burn, you can create a new layer, use the overlay blend mode and choose fill with overlay neutral color 50% gray, and just get the brush tool and start painting with white with an opacity of 20 and flow 10 maybe. Paint to really enhance this light over here, maybe increase the opacity to 50, and paint over this to create this really crazy light. And then we're gonna paint with the color on top, and you will see how that looks like. I'm gonna brighten the whole thing a little bit here, like so. Basically paint especially over the eye, like so. Now I'm gonna create a new layer. I'm gonna put it on color dodge, get a really nasty color like this, opacity and flow 100%. I'm gonna do this really quick because it's not really what I wanted to show. paint like so. And you can see how that looks like. It looks really weird, so try blend modes. Yeah, this one, vivid light looks nice. I have to fine-tune my painting here a little bit. That looks nice, vivid light. I'm gonna press Ctrl Command L to open the curves and well, the levels, and maybe do something like that. I don't know. It's kind of too saturated, but anyways. And now with the eraser or a layer mask, remove that color from the black of the eye and just leave it over the highlights, and that way you have something a little more realistic. Okay, see that? Not really the best one, but I don't know. If you don't like how that looks like, just leave it with the dodge and burn. I'm gonna show you the original that I made here. I used those lizard eyes, and I don't remember the blend mode that I used, but you can take a look at the PSD file and see it for yourself. Let's go with the difficult part, which is creating the drool. So I'm gonna create a new layer, create drool, and here is just pure painting. Okay, I really suck at painting, I swear, but with practice you can get something decent. A good practice again is looking for, translate it into Spanish, is look for reference image. Simpson is not a good reference. I don't know. Yeah, this one is a really good reference image. Let's see if it's open. If it opens, for some reason it doesn't. Yeah. Okay, let's look for Venom images. I hope that with this new law here, I don't get copyright problems. Venom drool. Or just use Venom. I don't know. I'm gonna. Yeah, see this? You can see how it looks like, and you can get ideas on how to do it, something more realistic. Let's see if we can find something. Yeah, this is a good image as well, but it's low quality. Yeah, this one is, I think, it's the best one. Okay, so you can see pretty much how it's done. It's just painting organic shapes. So get the brush tool, set it to white, low opacity. Let's start with 30 and flow 50. Here, graphic style, it's gonna be very useful. I'm gonna activate transfer. I'm not gonna activate shape dynamics, and I'm just gonna make part of it. I'm not gonna draw it in all of it because it's gonna take time. So for example, let's create this one, the drips over here. Okay. We have to paint with white and with black. First, I'm going to start painting the basic shape. Okay, the first one that it goes down here, something like that. I'm going to use a smaller brush just to create the line, the highlights. Keep in mind that this is just basically highlights. Okay, so just create something like that. Here on the bottom, I'm going to create another highlight and really thin, like so, and here something like that. Here I'm going to create another drip with a really nice highlight there on the tip of it. The same here, I'm going to create something like that. I'm going to create the shape of it and the highlight over there. Next here, I'm going to create lines like so. From the mouth, from the, yeah, something like that. Between the teeth, like so. I'm going to create a drip, for example, right over here, and with a big highlight on the bottom side. Here, more lines. When you zoom out at 100%, you can see the effect before and after. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but that's how it looks like. Here I'm going to create another one. I'm going to create the first shape that goes from there, and here I'm going to create a big highlight. I have to create a straight line, so I'm going to press the Shift key, and here on the tip of it I'm going to create a point, which is the highlight, and here the shape. Okay, something like that. Oops, that's too thick. Okay, let's go back. Okay, when you look at 100%, it looks a lot better. If it doesn't look good, try painting in between the two highlights that you paint. So I'm gonna create something a little more exaggerated here, so you can see it a little better. For example, this one over here. I'm gonna create one like so and one like so. Really huge so you can see it. Okay, so I created the highlights on the sides. Now the highlight of the drip over there, like so. And the shape of it like that. And maybe some highlights in the middle. Like so. And like that. If you look at 100%, it's gonna look flat. But you can paint with black inside of it. And you will see that it's gonna look a lot better. And also, you have to create shadows because this is a really big chunk of it and it's gonna cast some shadow. So don't be afraid of casting shadow. This will add more depth to it. And when you look again, well, it's not looking really that good, but it's gonna look a lot better. It's a lot better to create the ones that are floating, let's say, in the air than the ones that are on the skin if you're not a good painter like me. So that's why I don't paint too much on the skin, or let's say I paint the ones that are dripping, not the ones that are just flowing there on the skin, because I'm not a good painter and I just do what I can. Okay, so if I cannot do something, I'm not gonna try to do it because it's gonna look awful and I avoid doing it. Okay, so just paint a few drops here and there, try your best, and if it doesn't look good, just delete it and that's it. It's better not to do something than try and do something that is not, you know it's not gonna look nice, okay? So that's just basic drool painting, okay? Let's create a big one over here. I should like that. I think that looks a lot better. This slimy looking thing, and maybe another one over here, smaller. Okay, and this is how it looks like. I'm gonna leave it like so. I'm not gonna continue, but you can take a look at the original. You can see it here. I spent a little more time. I wanted to avoid using textures, water textures and stuff like that. I preferred to paint it myself. That way I get more practice. But if you have textures of wet skin, you can try using soft light or some other blend mode, okay? Great, now the difficult part is done. The next thing we want to do is start adding lights and that glowing red on the back. So let's minimize this model group and create a new layer underneath the model and in between the arms for now. Maybe we'll have to move this underneath the arms as well. I'm gonna group it and I'm gonna name this red light. Remember, the name of this artwork is Red Room. Okay, I'm gonna put this to screen and I'm gonna get the brush tool. And I'm gonna use a soft brush, opacity and flow 100%. Remember, you can set when you have the brush selected, you can set the opacity using the numeric keypad, just pressing 0 and shift 0. On Windows it's shift 0, but using the numbers on the top of the keyboard, not the keypad. I don't know why it's not the same, it's not working on Windows. And let's get the brush tool, as I said, yeah, soft brush, and I'm gonna use a red color, like so, but really dark. First, we're gonna use the outer glow, the one that is underneath, and then we're gonna make it stronger as we go closer to the window. Use a big brush and just paint like that. Let's deactivate transfer and undo and try again using a darker tone. They're really saturated, and just paint once there and a couple of clicks over there and here on the bottom as well. I didn't want to add light here on top. I know maybe it's not really that realistic. The light should be reflected here, but I don't know. I liked it how it looks like that, but you can do it if you want, okay? And of course they're on the window as well. Next I'm gonna use another brush, well, another color, sorry, a little brighter, and just paint closer to the window, like so. And now something really bright, like so. And a smaller brush just there on the window, like so. This light also works to separate the model from the background, okay? Now, the light is created. Now I want to create a new layer, which I'm going to set to color dodge. And I'm going to use the same brush, but a lot darker, because with this, I'm going to add light on the walls and also on the ground, like so. Okay, if it doesn't look nice, press Ctrl-Command-U, and you can saturate this, you can darken it, you can make it brighter, you can do whatever you like here. And just change the tone as well if you want something more orangey like this, or if you want something more towards magenta, or you know, just try and do whatever you think. Try and get something bright like this, but don't fill the whole room with the color. You will see that here on the original, the lights look a little different, and that's because we also have to work in camera raw, so we're not done yet. What else? I think we're done with the lights. I'm gonna create a new layer now on top of the model, and I'm gonna name this lights 2, and I'm gonna put this on screen as well. And this is because I want to create the glow of light, like the light is leaking over her body. And I'm gonna have to try different colors and see what works best. I want something a little brighter, not that saturated, sorry. Click there, and maybe there as well. Oops, that's too bright. And now I'm going to use something really bright and just add a touch of light, like so. I'm going to use a harder brush, just a little bit. Nope, I think we have to use white, actually, or something pretty much white. Oh, that's not good. I don't remember how I made that light. I don't remember the tone that I used. Yeah, something like that, I think. Let's try with red, completely red, and see what we get. Yeah, I think that looks better. Not really what I like. Let me take a look on this light over here. I think I used another blend mode, actually. Oh no, yeah, this one. But use this tone, really strong tone, okay? And here we have to use something that's almost white, because we don't have any color. Here we have white, and it's not going to look realistic otherwise. At least that's my opinion. And here that strong red as well. Maybe it's even too strong. Let's use a little darker tone. Yeah, that looks a little more realistic. And I think I'm gonna leave it like so. I'm not gonna touch it anymore. Yeah, let's move on and create a new empty layer on top. And I think I have no other. Yeah, I have no other adjustments. Now I'm gonna merge everything onto a new layer. Shift Option Command E. Shift Alt Control E on a PC, I think. Right click, convert to smart object. Now I'm gonna go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And here I'm gonna give you the preset that I used. I'm gonna go and click here on this icon and choose Load Settings. And most likely it's not gonna work. So we have to tweak it because I don't remember. I didn't use the same exact values that I used on the original, okay? So I'm going here to the stock folder and choose the preset that says red room final.xmp, load it, and you can see the effect. Now, what it doesn't load is the filters that I created. It just uses the sliders that I have here. So it's just gonna load the slides that the sliders here, the changes. But I made a lot of changes using this radial filter. For example, let me zoom in at 100%. On the eyes, I created two well, let's create one first. I'm gonna deactivate overlay so I can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna click here and choose reset local correction settings. And I'm gonna increase the exposure a little bit and the clarity to make the eyes stand out a little more, like so. And I'm gonna create a new one over there on the other eye. Next, I'm gonna create a new one. Well, actually, let's do it on the whole face. I'm gonna check overlay so I can see the overlay of this thing over here. Of course, the saturation, the exposure, it's too high, so I'm gonna also drop down the clarity, increase the highlights a little more, and the exposure, but not that much, and probably add a tint of magenta on it. What else? I'm gonna create new to add a new preset. I'm gonna reset it first and create a circle like this, but this circle is I'm gonna edit the outside of it, so basically just like a mask. So I'm gonna choose outside. I don't remember the presets, okay? I think I added a bluish tone. Maybe I increased the clarity a little bit to get more contrast. Maybe I dropped the contrast actually. And the reds are too saturated, but well, I'm gonna take care about the reds using the HSL filter. Sharpness, I'm gonna increase it a little bit. Saturation, yeah, I think it's good to saturate it. And now I'm gonna add yet a new one. I'm gonna reset it again, and I'm gonna edit the inside of the model. I'm gonna create something like that, make sure I cover pretty much all of her, like that. And I'm gonna edit the inside this time. And I don't know, maybe drop the highlights a little bit and increase the clarity. And I think it's too blue. I don't know if I would change her. Well, actually, maybe that looks okay. Okay, let's go to the hand icon and now go to the HSL because the reds are too saturated and too light, too illuminated, I think. Or actually, yeah, too little light. But yeah, maybe something like that. You can tweak this, as I said, to wherever you want. You can add this split toning and maybe more vignetting. And maybe here change the channels as well to change the colors. I saturated the red too much, I think. Okay, I want more light here on the face. So I'm gonna reset this thing again. Reset, of course, I want on the inside, exposure and clarity. And click OK, and this is my final edit. Before camera raw and after. It's still not looking like this one. This one is a lot darker, but I think it looks nice. I like it. I like it as well. If you're not happy with it, you can double click on the camera raw and maybe drop the whole exposure a little bit, increase this, maybe add more vignetting effect. And click OK, and you can see that this updates. And this is the end result. I hope you liked it. If you're not a premium member, you can go to the member site and sign up and get the PSD file, the resources, and get access to more than 100 advanced Photoshop tutorials. I'm also creating a full Photoshop tutorials for beginners that is gonna be more than 10 hours long. And I'm gonna publish it maybe this summer. Maybe I can publish it this summer. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Andrei from PSD Box, and see you next time.